On the day of April 21, 1865, the train left Washington, D.C. carrying President Abraham Lincoln's for 13 days taking 1,700-mile trip. As the train stopped by the stations, 12 million people viewed the Abraham Lincoln's funeral train. All of them had moments of silence and a lot of people mourned. The assassination was done by John Wilkes Booth. Many people questioned why did John, such young, rich, happy man, kill him. He was a great actor who followed his dad and his brother's career and loved by many fans. As the North and South were turning against each other, brother against the brothers, he adopted the view of the South. He viewed the South as the ideal type of the society which is pure. Booth thought that the slavery was an evil. It was actually a blessing to African Americans, and slavery brought him to Christianity. He considered that the South was pure while the North was actually evil. It was the abolitionists of the North who was splitting the nation apart. He hated the abolitionists and anti-slavery movement. Disturbed by the split of the nation, he thought that the South shouldn't just stay silent. On the other hand, Abraham Lincoln was wondering why God is giving him hardships. He read Job and he thought that he is in the situation like Job did. However, he realized that in the Bible, the goal of the destructions were not for the new of himself, nor the new achievements, but for the new understanding in one's mind of the nature reality. He shared his dream with his cabinet, which is about that the people in the White House was so alarmed at somebody's death. And when Abraham Lincoln about the person to one of the officer, the person answered it was Abraham Lincoln who died. As soon as the war point turned to the Union, Abraham Lincoln regained his vote for his re-election. The voters gained hope from the victory of the battle against the South, the anti-abolitionists. Abraham Lincoln gets elected for his second term, and the whole world knew that much more people will die because of Abraham's re-election. But he knew of himself of it too. Confederate leader cannot voluntarily re-accept the Union. We cannot voluntarily yield it. Then he continued, "It is an issue which can only be tried by war and decided by victory," said Abraham Lincoln. Something turned Booth, and Booth knew that Abraham Lincoln is going to use the war to tear off the South. Then he started to view the North as the most ruthless enemy, most because of one man, Abraham Lincoln. He plotted to kidnap President Lincoln and murdering William Seward, the Secretary of State, and Vice President Hannibal Hamlin with co-conspirators. But his plans failed. The loss of Confederate capital, Robert E. Lee's surrender, and the failure of his plan ashamed himself. He chose more desperate way to revenge the will of the South. He thought that it is actually punishing the North. In the morning of April 14, 1865, Booth heard about Abraham Lincoln coming to the Ford's Theater for a comic show. As soon as he heard that, he quickly plotted and contacted with his co-conspirators. They have planned that at the same time when John assassinates, Lewis Powell will murder the Secretary of State and George Atzerodt will murder Vice President. At the night of same day, Booth walks in the middle of the show at Ford's Theater and shoots Abraham Lincoln. At the same time, Lewis Powell stabbed the Secretary of State, but George Atzerodt lost his nerve in front of the House of Vice President.